On September 1st, 1923, at 11:58 in the morning, the largest wooden city on Earth had exactly 2 minutes left to exist. 3 million people lived in Tokyo that day. Most of them were home. It was lunchtime. Charcoal stoves burned in kitchens across the city. At 2 minutes to noon, the ground cracked open. The Great Kanto Earthquake hit at magnitude 7.9, and it hit at the worst possible moment, midday, when millions of cooking fires burned simultaneously. 140,000 people died, not from the earthquake itself, from fire that burned for 48 hours and consumed 40% of the city. But this video isn't about the earthquake. It's about what existed before. A wooden megacity with its own logic, its own beauty, its own way of solving problems that Western cities never figured out. And it disappeared in 2 days. The city didn't start as Tokyo. It started as Edo. In 1603, Tokugawa Ieyasu chose a small fishing village on the eastern coast as his capital. Over the next 265 years, Edo grew into one of the largest cities in the world. By the mid-1800s, over 1 million people. Larger than London, larger than Paris. And it was built almost entirely from wood. This wasn't backwardness. Japan sits on 4 tectonic plates. Stone buildings collapse in earthquakes. Wooden structures flex. They absorb the shaking. A wooden house that survives a quake can be repaired in days. Japanese carpenters had perfected timber construction over centuries. Joints without nails. Interlocking frames that distributed force across the entire structure. Buildings designed to move with the earth, not fight against it. When the Meiji government renamed Edo as Tokyo in 1868, they imported Western technology. But the city itself, the streets, the buildings, the neighborhoods, stayed wooden. By 1920, Tokyo's population had reached 2.3 million. The city had grown, but its character remained wooden. The Shitamachi, the low city, was where the working class lived. Streets barely wide enough for a single cart. Side streets dropped to 8 feet. Alleyways measured 3 feet wide. The machiya, the traditional townhouse, defined the streetscape. Narrow frontage, sometimes only 12 feet wide, extending deep into the block. The front room was a shop. Behind it, the family lived. Further back, a tiny courtyard. Buildings pressed against each other. Shared walls, shared roof lines. In some wards, population density exceeded 130,000 people per square kilometer. 5 times denser than modern Manhattan. Built from wood, Edo burned. Constantly. Major fires struck every 6 to 7 years. The Great Mireki Fire of 1657 killed over 100,000 people. After that disaster, the shogunate reorganized the entire fire response system. Each neighborhood maintained a team of haikishi, firefighters. These weren't volunteers with buckets. They were organized, trained, and equipped. Their primary technique wasn't putting out fires. It was demolition. When a fire started, the haikishi tore down buildings in its path to create gaps the flames couldn't cross. The city was designed to burn and designed to be rebuilt. A typical wooden building could be reconstructed in weeks. Standardized timber meant materials were interchangeable. This cycle, build, burn, rebuild, wasn't a flaw. It was the system. Mornings started early. By 5 a.m., the fish market at Nihonbashi was already operating. Thousands of vendors selling the day's catch from wooden stalls. The bathhouse was the center of social life. Most homes didn't have bathing facilities. By the 1920s, Tokyo had over 3,000 public bathhouses. You went to bathe, but you stayed to talk. Food came from the street. Thousands of mobile food stalls lined Tokyo's roads, each one a wooden cart with an open charcoal flame. Soba noodles, tempura, sushi in its original form, quick, cheap, eaten standing up. Open fire, wooden wheels, parked next to wooden buildings. Nobody thought twice about it. Asakusa was the heart of popular culture. Kabuki theaters, storytelling halls, early cinema. Tens of thousands of visitors daily. All wooden, all pressed together. Everyone in Tokyo knew the danger. No one could solve it. By the 1920s, population growth had filled every available space. Buildings that once had gaps between them now shared walls. Courtyards that once provided fire breaks had been built over. Reports from the 1890s warned that a major earthquake, combined with fire, could destroy the entire eastern half of Tokyo. Engineers proposed fire breaks. Wide avenues cut through the dense neighborhoods. Nothing happened. The cost was politically impossible. Property owners resisted. Residents resisted. So Tokyo waited. 3 million people living in a wooden city on a fault line, cooking over open flames. At 11:58 a.m. on September 1st, 1923, the Philippine Sea Plate lurched beneath the Sagami Trough, 90 kilometers southwest of Tokyo. The shaking reached the city within seconds. Wooden buildings swayed, as they were designed to. Many survived the initial shock. But the earthquake struck at lunch hour. Millions of cooking fires burning simultaneously. The fire started within minutes. Not one fire. Hundreds, scattered across Shitamachi and beyond. Wind made it worse. A typhoon was passing to the north, pulling strong winds across the Kanto plain. Individual blazes became walls of flame that moved through neighborhoods faster than people could run. The firestorm created its own weather. Superheated air rose, pulling in oxygen from all directions. Wind speeds at ground level reached tornado force. In the Rikugun Honjo Hifukusho, a former military clothing depot where 40,000 refugees had gathered, a fire tornado swept through the open ground. 38,000 people died in that single location. The fires burned for 48 hours. When they stopped, 40% of Tokyo was ash, over 570,000 buildings destroyed, 140,000 dead, 1.9 million homeless. The wooden megacity was gone. Reconstruction began almost immediately. Goto Shinpei, the home minister, proposed a radical plan. Wide boulevards, fireproof construction, parks that doubled as evacuation zones. Major roads were widened to 30 or 40 meters. Fire breaks disguised as transportation infrastructure. Building codes changed. Reinforced concrete replaced wood in commercial districts. But in the residential neighborhoods, wood returned. Cheaper, faster, familiar. The working class couldn't afford concrete. By 1930, much of Shitamachi looked remarkably similar to what had existed before. The fundamental pattern reasserted itself. It would take a second destruction, the firebombing of March 1945, which killed over 100,000 people, to finally end the era of wooden Tokyo. The Tokyo that existed before September 1923 is almost impossible to recover. Photographs survive. Some film footage exists. But the physical city, the actual wooden structures, the streetscapes, the spatial relationships between buildings, is gone. A few fragments remain. Some traditional buildings survive in areas that escaped both the earthquake and the firebombing. They're rare. They're isolated. Single structures in a concrete city, like words from a lost language. What disappeared wasn't just buildings. It was a system. The Cho neighborhoods with their self-governance, the fire brigades, the bathhouses that served as community centers, the particular way that light fell through narrow gaps between wooden buildings. 300 years of accumulated urban knowledge, how to live densely in a seismic zone, how to build communities in tight spaces, how to balance beauty and impermanence, erased in 2 days. Tokyo's story isn't unique, it's a pattern. Cities built from combustible materials, packed with people, sitting on known hazards. Governments that understand the risk, but won't act until disaster forces their hand. Some lessons can only be learned through loss. Tokyo learned twice. 300 years of building, 48 hours of burning. That's the math of Tokyo's wooden megacity. A city that solved problems we're still struggling with. Density, community, resilience. And lost it all because of one problem it couldn't solve. Fire. Every city is a bet against disaster. Tokyo lost that bet in 1923. What it built afterward was stronger, but something irreplaceable was gone. Thank you for watching. Next time, we go to America, to a city that in 1905 was the wealthiest, most confident metropolis on the West Coast. A city built on gold rush money and railroad fortunes. A city where the ground hadn't moved in decades, and most people had stopped thinking about earthquakes entirely. They were about to be reminded. But that story starts the day before.